Contrary to what is often assumed in English-speaking contexts, deconstruction is not demolition. Rather, it is a double movement starting with a careful dismantling of particular structures of thought in order to reveal their underlying but unacknowledged assumptions, and then using that destabilization to create new possibilities which open a passage for thinking otherwise. Grace Jansen, in Becoming Divine. I do not know whether there is anything infinite at all. I answer perhaps from some obscure unconscious compulsion, perhaps from some blind instinct, perhaps from a bit of undigested beef, perhaps in response to the voice of God who calls out whenever the least of her children is laid low. John Caputo. I require a you to become. Becoming I say you. Jen Buber. Important life events seem to be waiting in line for their turn to ruin your life. They loiter about until they get their chance to bring their own mini apocalypse, spending their woeful days preparing to happen and change you. They're not always bad, but they always ruin your life. Sometimes you're a willing participant, other times it just happens to you. Either way, it seems these things are inevitable. And so, at some points over the past few years, my life has effectively been ruined, for better or for worse. I've emerged in this place, whether that it is non-faith or confused spirituality or just cynicism. Here I am. There isn't a specific moment when it happened, when I decided to be where I am now in terms of religion, belief in God, big G, or God, little g, or light, or whatever he or she happens to be, if he or she happens to be. It happened over time, which you might think would hurt less, and maybe that's true. It was a slow and sad realization. These doubts started creeping in as I grew up, as people I loved died. I started feeling uncomfortable sitting in church. I asked questions. I started reading existentialist philosophy. I know it's trite. I was trying to look at the world through different lenses than the ones I had inherited. It's not like reading these things and thinking these thoughts suddenly made me cease to care about God. Quite the opposite. I suddenly cared very much. I cared who this God was, deeply questioned what I had been told and what I had believed. Things were not adding up. It wasn't a fanatical break. In fact, I tried to hold on for so long. He kept slipping away. I wasn't totally alone. The close friends I had were all in a similar place, and our conversations were dominated by this topic. One of these friends once said she resented the idea that agnostic means you don't care. Someone had accused agnostics of this. For she considered herself one, and she cared very much. I think I align myself there as well. How odd that we all believe something that we've been told our whole lives. How come it's okay to question some things, but blasphemous to question others? We celebrate freedom within a framework of faith, right? But what's to be done if this framework is suddenly unstable for me? Can I patch it up? Forget it. I can't. And effectively, it ruined my life. I know this isn't everyone's story, but this is mine. At an earlier point, I did believe in God. I believe I did have a personal relationship with this being, a perfect father and brother who loved and created all human beings, who created heaven and hell. For some reason, it doesn't work on me anymore. And honestly, I wish it did, because I think I would do almost anything to have the comfort of faith again. But I can't believe in a God who is all-powerful and yet still decides to separate a human being from his presence. I can't follow a pattern of beliefs that tell me the way that God has chosen to relate to human beings, that tells me who God is, and more importantly, who and what God is not. Slowly, I began accepting my doubts for just what they were. I talked to God about it. I let him slash her slash the cosmos know that I was only trying to figure it out down here. I might be taking a leave of absence. I laughed and cried my way through from some really insightful, pissed off, painful, funny times. There's an assumption that everyone at Gordon is a Christian. And all Gordon students have, at least at the core, the same fundamental faith. I'm not trying to dumb down anyone's faith down to basic beliefs, but most Christians would agree that to be a Christian, there are certain things you just need to hold as true. It's like a tower of building blocks that we inherit as children. They form a foundation for our understanding of the world. They describe God, Jesus, this little light of mine. They are comforting. They make sense. And I've turned to mine only to find that they have sort of crumbled to an indistinguishable rubble, and there's some weird, dirty animal making a mess of it. Maybe your response is, well then, why are you at Gordon? If you don't have these so-called building blocks, why stay? All I can say is that I had them when I came in. I'm so close to graduating now that it's not prudent to leave. Also, it's not like I hate everything here. Some things still make sense, and the experience has made me who I am, and I'm thankful for that. I can't speak for anyone but myself, but I just want someone to know that not every student at Gordon is a Christian. My spirituality looks different now. It's not gone. I still find wonder and awe in facets of my life where the spiritual takes the reins, and I cherish those times when I can relax into the breath of a godlike presence, connect to something outside of my cynicism. I find it most when I work in my art, in music and theater. Art is where I explore my spirituality, where doubts and the unknowns are allowed to be fruitful and multiply. I'm far away now from where I was, but I'm moving forward. I strive to accept the possibility that there may or may not be many explanations for what I do not understand, or perhaps multiple possibilities that that are simultaneously true. Confusing? It's the concept of both and as opposed to either or. For instance, there is and is not God. Daring, right? But here I am thinking these things. I can't help being who I am. Like Caputo, I'm leaving open possibilities around there being anything infinite at all. I leave open the possibility that I answer perhaps from some obscure unconscious compulsion, and also the possibility that it really is in response to the voice of God. And I think that if God is real, God can only want of me to be myself and to be as true to that person as I can be. As a Gordon professor whom I greatly admire once said to me, I think God wants us to think big things. If God did create me, then God created me to be able to entertain the possibility that he/she does not exist. I don't have much in the way of apologetics for the way I understand spirituality, but I beg of you not to force yours upon me. I'm working it out the best I can. I started this piece out with a few quotes that have greatly influenced my life. One is from a book that I'm actually reading right now by a feminist philosopher named Grace Jansen. I came across this quote about a month ago. It stuck with me. Deconstruction is not demolition. Deconstruction is two things: dismantling and creating new. It's really easy to look at my deconstructed pieces and feel totally at a loss and give up. But to hear someone say that I can build new things from old pieces, that's solid gold. I do actually hope that someday I can say that I have created something new from my dismantled faith. Maybe I'm on my way now. I want to believe that anything is possible. And maybe someday you'll find me in a pew again, or at least a prayer circle at a Quaker Friends meeting. I hope I don't live in this place forever, but I need to prepare to be here as long as it takes.